begin tonight by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Okay, so firstly, my name is Lucy. I'm one of the organisers here at the user group. If I haven't met you, or we haven't seen Steve here, nice to meet you. You mostly just see me dawdling around, clearing up pizza boxes, telling people to come to the event, just the usual background stuff. Anyway, my name is Lucy. I'm one of the team leads at Works in the cloud operations space. In addition to that, I'm also a community builder, and user group is very important to me in the South Building Brisbane community. For background, being one of the organisers here for about 3 years, I think. Been a while. And it's nice to see both familiar faces and the new faces, so thank you again for coming out tonight. So, we have a big evening tonight. So, first things first. So, we're going to kick it off with Alan Blockley, who's down in the corner, who's going to talk about Gen AI in 2024 so far. Next, we'll be getting a presentation from Mr. Mike Chambers, who will be talking about the year of the AI engineer. From there, we'll have Mark Roberts talking about real-world AI and how he's seen it in his job at AWS and the customers that are actually using it. And then finally, we have Alan Liu, who will be talking about Gen AI security, and especially with the current breaches in general world. Obviously, security is important, and with Gen AI being the buzzword, we definitely need to talk about security more. So, hope you guys have a great night. In the middle, we will have pizza and beer, of course. And we do have a few prizes to give away, so please make sure you're paying attention. We'll have some questions, and we have some fun prizes, good dots, builder's cards, fun free stuff. Yeah, cool. So before we kick it off and hand it over to Alan, I'm going to hand it over to Ryan, who will be talking to us about our next event, the Fun AWS Game Day. Yeah.
Thank you, Lucy. I'll just yell. Cool. So you've probably heard the last couple of months, if you've been here, we are hosting a game day next month, but I want to do a bit of a test. So put your hand up if you like prizes. Come on, this is a group activity. Awesome. Keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. Keep your hand up if you like to be competitive. Yeah. Keep your hand up if you like to be also hands-on and start actually clicking buttons. Cool. Now what I want you to do, keep that hand up, take your phone out. Keep your hand up. Take your phone out. Give it 2 hands.
Check it out.
Fair, if you got a beer, you can use it there. Now take a photo of the QR code and sign up. So this one will be, so this is obviously next month. We are it is a little bit of an earlier start, like today, just because we need a bit of time to get all this done and have fun. There'll be a lot of prizes as well. We have, I think, something around $2,000 in AWS credits that we'll be able to give out for this one. Plus a whole bunch of other prizes and stuff we're going to have together. It is a team competitive event, so if you have friends, or don't have friends, that's okay too. We'll put you in a team with other people that don't have friends. There's a bit of a story. You'll all be new hires at a company at Unicorn Rentals, but we'll tell you a bit more on the night. So yeah, feel free to come through. We will have no break through that one. You will eat at your desk and keep working like a good engineer does.
It'll be lots of fun, we promise.
Be great fun, super fun. First one run, I think, in Brisbane.
For a public group.
But for first one, yeah, for a public group altogether as well. So yeah, awesome. And without ado, I'll pass on to Alan to kick us off.
Bring your laptops.
Oh yeah, bring your laptops.
Bring your chargers.
We won't have room for spectators. This will all be tables and everything. So bring your laptops, bring your chargers, bring
your competitive
something.
spirit.
That's it.
We can see things. Excellent. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Ryan. I nearly forgot your name there. I'm doing well so far already. So what I want to achieve today, by the way, I'm Alan, Presales Digital Architect Lead and User Group Leader and AWS Community Builder and AWS Ambassador. That's me. Cool. Got that bit out of the way. So what I wanted to achieve today was just a recap on our journey so far with generative AI. It's been a bit of a bumpy road. There's been a lot of information out there. And also, what I wanted to do is acknowledge the fact that we have a varied audience here today, from generative AI beginners to people that have been using it since its inception. So I wanted to bring everyone up to a baseline level before I let our awesome experts for the rest of the evening start to tell you a lot more cooler things than I can tell you. What has generative AI given us so far? Now, this is interactive. I'm not going to stand here and talk at you all night. I do want some opinions here. But what's generative AI given us so far? Shout out.
RAG.
Sorry?
RAG.
RAG? Okay, cool. RAG, there's one. Yeah.
Agents.
Agents, perfect. That's another one. What about use cases? Creative pictures?
Epic cat pictures.
Epic cat pictures. Love it. Perfect. Better formatted emails. Headaches. Nightmares. That's hopefully what we're going to clarify tonight, is that anxiety, yes.
Stress about losing my job.
Let's say you'll never lose your job.
Right, sir. I feel needed.
And extensive travel plans as well for some people in the room. But yes, sorry.
Co-pilots.
Co-pilots, yeah, okay, cool. This is where we're going with this. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is the generative AI journey so far, and my favourite bit as well. Who recognises this slide? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is actually one of the slightly older slides, I do apologise. But this is ultimately the generative AI stack as we know it at the moment. You've got the bottom level here where all the DIY Lego bricks sit behind AWS's generative AI and foundational models. But we're not talking about that today. What we're talking about is this little section just here. The bits that make it easy for a developer, the bits that make it easy for you as an AWS customer. So Bedrock with its guardrails and agents, and Amazon Q, the more commercialized, easy to use, get started level of generative AI applications. See, even the Galactic Empire agrees it's a slightly older model, but still checks out. Amazon Bedrock. Just bringing it up to speed here, for those that don't know what this is yet. It's the easiest way to build and scale generative AI applications with foundational models. It's a fully managed service that ultimately means you can get started quickly. You can find the right model for what you want and get it done. You can also customize models with your own data, and it's private as well. You can customize data with your own private data. Nothing gets fed back to the people who make that model. You have the tools that you need to combine the power of foundational models with your organization or your application's data to then do what you want to do, no matter how complex it might be. Amazon Bedrock has access to probably one of the widest variety of models available. And that's probably one of the most important features of Bedrock. Builders and developers, you guys move fast, right? Like seriously fast.
Yep.
Like in the door fast, don't see that person come in. Welcome. So Bedrock needs to move just as fast. There's new innovations daily, and so there's new models as well daily and new features daily. Then there's Amazon Q. We've got Amazon Q for Business, which is a Gen AI-powered assistant that can answer questions based upon your own data. Think of it like a knowledge base, amongst other things. It can help you complete tasks based on the data and information as well that you've got in your knowledge base. Amazon Q Developer, we'll touch on this a bit later today, because this is one of my favourite features. But ultimately, it helps you develop quicker, easier. Then we've got Amazon Q for QuickSight, Q for Connect, and supply chain. Not going to go into those ones today. Then there's good old Party Rock. Who remembers the Party Rock announcements earlier in the year? Who took part in the hackathon? Did nobody take part in the Party Rock hackathon?
Only you, probably.
Yes, there's always one in the room, right?
Party for one.
Sorry.
Supposedly there's never been a better time to be a builder or a developer. So this is back to you guys now. What's the best thing about being a software developer or about being a builder? Best things only.
Creativity.
Cool, I like it. Creativity. Anyone else? Solving problems with code. Are you looking at my slides? Learning new technologies. Does anybody like learning new technologies? Yeah, okay, we've got a little finger over there. Wave that hand. Wave that hand up. And then, fixing bugs? No, maybe not.
It can be fun.
Sorry?
It can be fun.
It can be. What?
It's the endorphin rush when you fix the bug.
Okay, well, I like that. I like that positive turnaround there.
That's whose bug it is.
Yeah.
What about the things that you know that are important but you don't enjoy that much?
Documentation.
Okay, apparently nobody likes documentation. Who likes writing tests? Okay, there's a few dry smiles there. Who likes working on legacy code? Didn't think so. And then who likes creating bugs? It depends on who wants How much time do you think is actually spent writing fun code? Ask yourself, how much time do you think you spend productively writing code?
Writing, deleting. Is there a difference?
Deleting and writing, yeah, okay. Apparently, according to statistics, and statistics will say exactly what we want them to say sometimes, the median time that developers spend being productive writing or editing code in the IDE itself is about an hour per day. What are you doing with the other 7? Don't say drinking coffee. Sorry.
Reviewing.
Reviewing, yeah. Writing code, writing documentation, yeah. Only 10% of developers, supposedly worldwide, from software.com by the way, I didn't write this stat myself, only 10% of developers actually spend more than 2 hours a day being productive in the IDE, writing code. The rest of them are probably bogged down with all that other stuff they don't want to be doing in the IDE, or outside the IDE, so. So what else do we do then? And again, I think we've already covered this. We have nightmares about code, we have nightmares about bugs. In fact, this is probably a great visual as to what else we are doing. The whole analysis, the design, the develop, the test, the deploy, the maintain. How much of that on that screen there is actually the fun stuff?
I think it depends on who you ask.
That's a good point. I personally like this bit in the middle here. The rest of it, not so much.
Straight production.
In the operations, people don't like it.
So as you look across the whole software development lifecycle, you only spend a small portion of actually writing code and developing it. We want to be able to start to find tools to help us streamline the other areas, the analysis and design. How do you know what the right tool is? You can ask that question across any stage of the SDLC. What tests should you do? how much effort goes into writing tests, and then deployment. You know, you've got the command line, the ClickOps, IAC, the documenting tools, a new framework comes out for deploying, and then you start to get that vagary behind new frameworks, learning new deployment techniques. That was like a good Star Wars quote. Have you noticed this yet? Today's theme is Star Wars. I won't put the accent on. But writing code is only a part of the craft of being a developer. On top of that, developers operate in a constant state of change. Difficult to see, always in motion is the future. Over the years, developers have adapted to ever-increasing levels of abstraction to make their life easier and more productive. It's also made development more accessible, allowing more people to enter the industry as well. I mean, how many people in this room started with punch cards?
Not that old.
Thank you. I knew there would be at least two. How many people have written machine code? And then assembly language? Now it's just getting easier, there's more people. Compiled languages. And then into interpreted languages, probably most of the room. As a new framework comes along, the entry level is more attractive, easier to get into, more productive as well. So this whole progression thing also goes with, you know, the different tools that we have as well, the different frameworks, things that make life easy outside of languages as well. Similar pattern. So there's other kind of resources as well that developers use to help them be more effective. When we code, the code that we produce rarely works for the first time. Seriously, hands up, who's got their code to work first time?
Rust developer.
Was that by brute force?
10 print hello.
You've been seeing my slides too. So there's generally 3 ways that you get your code to work, historically anyway. Brute force. Google search gurus. Who's a Google search guru in here? I've been given that title a few times historically as well. Yep. Come on, there's a few people in here now scared to put their hands up. And then finding answers on the web on forums that are designed to do this. Stack Overflow, Reddit, blog posts. Who here has visited the community.AWS site recently? If you've not, why not? Community.AWS, that's the URL, that's all you need to know. Great repository for information on anything technical. The keyword of the future, based upon the most. It's actually, this has been a common meme, but this one was created by Tyson Image Generator, so the memes of the future are safe for now. But yes, that's the developer that we could become. Okay, let's go. I feel like this needs a matrix pun with some variety at this point. What if I told you there was another way? There's got to be a better way of developing code, right? Other than, you know, copy paste and Stack Overflow and having to search on the internet and turn the lights off randomly.
Everyone looks very bright in the back.
Code
They
Whisperer.
look bright. Don't call them dim. It's all-
We use Code Whisperer now.
Sorry?
Code Whisperer.
Code Whisperer. Never heard of it. Code is a language. I've got this joke, and this is a common joke amongst many developers, that I can speak many languages. English, parlez-vous français, sprechen Sie Deutsch, Temperate hello. Python, PHP. The programming languages that we use day in, day out are very similar to the languages that we speak. They have grammar, syntax, oddities. Amazon Q Developer, formerly known as Code Whisperer, it turns out, is one way that we can make our lives a lot easier. This is one of my favourite parts of what's happened with generative AI over the years so far, is what was Code Whisperer now became Q Developer. I'm just wondering if Adam needs Q Developer here to help him with the lights.
I'm very pedantic about lighting.
I see this. Do you have a clap or a point? And Presales. It turns out, over the past year, large language models have revolutionized how we interact with language using words. It turns out that the really exciting areas of language and generative AI can also be applied to the software development lifecycle because they are just words and languages of a different type. So all of a sudden, the diagram we saw earlier the diagram we saw earlier with the different methods we can use to help us develop more efficiently now has generative AI on it. We become more productive. This slide I thought would be quite profound, but not really, it's not that impactful. The craft of the developer reimagined. So, I say so quite a lot, and I've got to stop doing that. Developers can use generative AI tools to help them prepare in the analysis phase of the software development lifecycle by asking better questions. When we pick up a new development task, we first have to find the information that we need. Gen AI can help us both generally and specifically. We can leverage Gen AI tools together with approaches like RAG. So we can start asking questions, we can give it our contextual information, and then ask it the right questions about what it is we want to do. We can be better prepared for that question that sometimes ends with, it depends. How many solutions architects in the room answer questions with, it depends. Depends on how many showed up, depends on how many... During the design phase, you need to start thinking more about what you're going to do, what you're going to do with the architecture, and how the solution is going to look. You need to find accurate, up-to-date information and guidance to help you understand potential solutions. Don't forget, it's potential solutions, not all solutions are correct. So, a better plan to approach your task. Providing your technical design options, understanding what the trade-offs of those options are, right-sizing those options. Is this going to be suitable for my solution? And then finally, defining the architecture and frameworks that you need for the job. Maybe you only like a certain framework. Hi, I like Stan. You like CDK. Let's have that argument today. And finally, when it comes to actually coding and developing the cool stuff, the fun stuff, you can learn new concepts. You might want to understand how to implement and use algorithms. You might want to maybe understand the difference between file formats or data conversion or working with regex, because I don't know regex off the top of my head. I Google it and still struggle to understand it. You might want to understand how better to optimize that code. You've already got the code sometimes. So you might want to be able to go into your IDE and just say, analyze this code for me and tell me What am I doing wrong with it? How can I make it better? Because it's exactly what Amazon Q developer can do for you. And then looking at securing the code as well, we can't forget about security. Because when it comes to security, if you want to ensure that you're doing it right, if you want best practice advice, Amazon Q developer can also suggest things like what is more secure in this block of code here. Who likes testing? We asked this quite earlier. What if I said it will write your tests for you? No one's woohooing. Oh, did you all forget to do tests in general? Just ignore them anyway. But having your unit tests written for you by generative AI means that you can not have to worry about them too much. And then shipping the applications, it can help you write the infrastructure as code that you need to be able to deploy your application. It can help you write scripts that would otherwise maybe be difficult to write because you're wondering how to make it stitch it all together. Maybe you've got two different frameworks that need to deploy at the same time. Here's the one I like the most. Grab my documentation. I even wrote a script to do that. Throw the code at it, it gives me the documentation back in Markdown format. I was a very happy chappy when I did that. And then keeping things going. Learning code bases, so you've got an older code base. I think one of the key metrics that was used when they released Q Developer at Rian last year was that they converted something like 1,000 Java applications from a legacy Java version to a new version. Refactoring one language to another. Helping troubleshoot, I mentioned earlier, in the IDE, be able to just ask it what's wrong with this code. This is a blog post that I looked at earlier, and it talks about going from Python to Java. This was also on community.aws, by the way. In case anyone forgot that URL earlier that I mentioned, community.aws, get it ingrained in your brain. Feel free to quickly scan that QR code if you want to reference that blog post later. I will also put the slides out at the after this event. Like all tools, we need to practice and understand how we get the best out of them. These new generative AI tools are no different at all. There's a broad range of generative AI developer tools out there at the moment, so the first thing to think about is think about the task that you're doing and if it's, which one's right, which tool is right for the task that I'm doing. Amazon Q Builder is a general purpose tool that can help you get answers in generalized development, words are hard. It can help you get answers to generalized developer questions. Amazon Q in the console is trained on 17 years of AWS documentation. Imagine being able to ask any AWS member of staff a question at any time. Amazon Q in the console. And then if you want to do stuff in the command line, AWS CLI, or anything in the CLI, you can use Amazon Q Developer CLI to help you be more productive at the command line. Things you should think about. You should probably provide additional context on which version of the runtime that you are using. So when you start using something like Amazon Q Developer or any of these Gen AI toolsets, be more specific about which version you're using. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but occasionally, even Gen AI will get confused and give you the wrong answer with the wrong syntax because it assumed you meant Python 2, not Python 3. PHP 7.4 versus 8. Same words, different order. That one sounds weird, but reorder your question. Sometimes you might get a more accurate answer if you reorder the question. Be explicit. it might only give you partial information you'll need to fill in the blanks. And finally, trust the technology. But always verify the accuracy before you use the information that comes out of it. Supposedly, the craft of the developer recalibrates it. To conclude, developers have always used new tools and new levels of abstractions to help them be more productive. Generative AI tools like Q are just a natural evolution of this. It's effectively just a new set of tools that are in our toolbox, just like CDK, SAM, VS Code. The less interesting stuff that developers have to do have been made simpler. This is what I want Gen AI to do for me. I want to do the boring stuff so I can do the more interesting stuff. I don't want to draw in pretty pictures for me. I want to do the boring admin work so I can go and make the pretty pictures or the really interesting code. Think of it, rather than as artificial intelligence, as assistive intelligence. If you want to get involved in the community, learn more, community.AWS, I mentioned it earlier. If you want to get started with Amazon Q developer, also the link is there as well. Thank you very much for listening to my voice dragging on for the last 4 hours.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you very
Go
much.
for it, Mark.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me back to come and talk at the AWS user group in Brisbane, because it's been a while. I used to be, well, I suppose I still am a part of the community, but I used to be in the community, and then I started working for AWS, and they're like, yeah, this is our meetup, not yours. So thank you for giving me permission to come back and speak. I want to present about AI, which is super exciting. I usually have to start by apologising because everyone's sick of hearing about it. But you knew that this was going to be about AI, right? So you're okay with it, yeah? Okay. I want to present on this topic. This is something that I'm sort of going around evangelising at the moment. That 2024 is the year of the AI engineer. Is there anybody in the room who would put their hand up and say that you're an AI engineer? Nobody. I didn't expect anybody to. It's okay. I might sort of like raise my hand halfway up. But what I'm going to present here is about AI engineering, why I think that this might be different. Maybe even at the end of this presentation it might be different, but maybe next year some of you might be putting your hands up. And definitely, I think we all should have some AI engineering skills in our back pocket, because I think if you're a full stack developer, a solution architect, any of these kinds of roles, product managers, project managers even, probably should have some awareness, if not actually some AI engineering skills. And I'm going to make my case for that. And so, yeah, it all starts with AI. And thanks to Alan for the presentation before me. We obviously got a great foundation for what this technology basically is. And also, he spoke a lot about the AWS services. And I'm not really going to do that. I'm going to do it a little bit. So thank you to the community member for saying all about AWS. And now I'm just going to go and tell you what I think. So, artificial intelligence. The reason why I've got this slide here and why it just says AI is because I like to make the point that artificial intelligence, the definition I think of that term, has subtly changed in the last couple of years. Like when I started to help people with machine learning and deep learning, and I put course content together, I made videos and all that kind of stuff. I usually talk into a camera, by the way. This is a very strange experience for me, that you all looking at me. But when I make that content, AI content, we used AI as this sort of umbrella term, which was just this a container which inside had deep learning and machine learning and things like that. I didn't really pay much attention. Popular culture used it a bit, but the term belongs to us, technologists, I think. But this has changed, right? And so at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, ChatGPT came along, put this generative AI technology in the hands of everybody, not just us. How is that fair? Because now everybody in the world's using it. I remember demonstrating like GPT 2 point something or other, and like people would be like, that's pretty interesting, that's okay. And now it's in everybody's hands. AI is like all over the media, everybody's talking about it. I think that's a good thing, but we don't own this term anymore. And it has changed its definition, I think, and is now broadly accepted everywhere, and that probably aligns to AI engineering as well. Like that term is different now to the term we would use, or the definition we would have for it several years ago. So generative AI is the reason for this, of course. We know that. We've talked about it already today. Behind the scenes of generative AI are foundation models. Maybe you're familiar with this already, so I'm going to try and race through bits of this so I can show you some stuff. The foundation models are machine learning models, so they are machine learning models, but they're trained on vast quantities of data, like eye-wateringly huge sets of data, usually with vast quantities of compute and quite large budgets and over a long period of time. One of the key differences here for anybody sort of following along from the machine learning, like the normal machine learning days, is that there we would take large data sets that belonged to our business or our social enterprise or whatever, and we would spend a reasonable amount of time with what we thought was a lot of compute to train a machine learning model to do just one thing, to make one prediction. These foundation models that are being generated by large laboratories typically are general purpose and can be used for all kinds of different business problems. Not all business problems, but all kinds of business problems, and that's what makes them super interesting. So we get to leverage this enormous investment that some companies have made, and we get to apply these to our own business problems, the stacks that we want to make. And this is a really key point here, is that when we would train machine learning models before, we would have to make an economic decision about what was worthwhile doing. It's like, this is a big problem for us, so we want to solve this, like it's customer fraud or something like this, or there's a huge opportunity over here with people like joining our loyalty program, so we're going to train this model, it's worthwhile us doing this. But there's a whole bunch of other work that just wasn't worth doing, so we wouldn't address it. And we have an opportunity now to address some of those through these large foundation models that have been trained for us. It's worthwhile the experiment. We can't do everything, but it's worth giving it a go. Behind the scenes with these foundation models then are the large language models. And I'm going to probably spend most of my time talking about this. Alan mentioned before that image generation and stuff like that. That is not really where the core value right now is. It may well change over the next few months. But large language models are this text generation capability, but it goes way beyond that. It has this inherent intelligence inside of these models. These large language models are what we are primarily focused on. It's what I'm primarily focused on as well.
What about Canva buying Leonardo?
We're going to have some real world stuff. I don't talk real world. Mark talks real world.
Just trying to.
And custom use case and stuff. Go see Mark. So this was the point I made. In 2022, the world woke up to generative AI. So more than just us in this room, everybody outside. My dad uses generative AI. He's not a technologist. My kids use it. They are tech savvy, but my daughter's using it. She's studying some sort of biology thing, and she's using it. I don't know. It's not technical, so I don't get it. But she uses it. She's studying at university. She's sending these papers into Claude and saying, summarize these so that I don't have to read them. So, yes, that's veterinary science is going, I don't know where that's going. So, over a year ago, I put this slide together and I used to present this. And I now still like to do it because I like to sort of point at what it is that I used to talk about. It's still correct. Is that we have these generative models, and back then I was definitely talking about image generation, and so I put this prompt in, a happy golden retriever wearing glasses and a hat in a portrait painting. Yes, and so this text generation, so the stuff surrounded by green is the prompt. You can get the models to generate stuff. This, over a year ago, this was pretty exciting. Not so exciting now. We've gone beyond this. In 2023, so last year, we made huge progress, and we, society in general, made huge progress in terms of what generative AI could do. We spent a lot of time working on our laptops with sample code. We'd use LangChain, if people have come across that, and we'd be like splicing things together and saying, I can make you do this. Things like retrieval augmented generation that Alan mentioned is the kind of thing that started to emerge as this really strong architecture. Things like, the other thing, people make much bigger models, like huge amounts of investment going into buying all the world's GPUs and electricity to make enormous models, other people trying to make tiny little models that also do very exciting things. All of those things happen too. And in addition to that, and RAG is part of this, people were trying to figure out different ways to communicate with the models, to persuade them to do what they wanted to have done. So this is basically prompting techniques. And what I'm so excited about with this is that we all have the tools that are necessary in order to be able to actually play around with that, right? All we need is an API endpoint with a huge model behind it, and Amazon Bedrock, as we saw before, will definitely give you that. And you can then start to think about different ways of presenting textual information. You don't really even need to be a developer at this point, or to know about code. You're just writing out text. Like, the prompts are, please will you do this, or you are this kind of entity, can you please do that? It's mind-blowing the kinds of things that as developers we've now turned to sort of linguistics to try and persuade the models to work. We all have access to this, and so we could all make the next discovery. Anyway, 2023, we made all of these massive discoveries. I've got a bit of a summary here of sort of what I think are some of the key things. So we've got generation. So we have the ability to be able to generate text. I talked about that before. This isn't that spectacular nowadays, but we can write a prompt. So these things that I've got in the boxes below are sort of fragments of suggested prompts that we could use. So summarize this report. Basically what my daughter's doing, like taking this big biology thing and saying, summarize this and tell me the key points. It's a generation task, right? It's a type of generation task. You can do sentiment analysis, you can do all kinds of stuff with the same kind of approach. Also, and Alan mentioned this before, writing code. Like, I can't tell you the amount of code that I've generated now or been involved with making compared with previous, the last 10 years is probably eclipsed by what I've done over the last 10 months. I just now write applications because I need something to do something, just for myself. It's a lot of fun and very useful. But, and this is where it gets, I think, a lot more interesting, we are going beyond that. This is what happened last year, so a realization that there's more to it than just generating, as it was put to me the other day, a job application letter and a resignation letter. You can do more than that. And so there's this reasoning and planning. The idea that through the language understanding of these models, because that's basically what they have, is immense amounts of language understanding, is that they have the ability to be able to think. I'm not going to tell you that they're conscious or alive or anything, because I value my job, but they are able to be intelligent, like it's the I in artificial intelligence. So they have intelligence. You can ask them, you can prompt them to say things like, think out loud and generate thoughts in their responses. You can ask them to think step by step. So there's tree of thought, chain of thought, step by step thinking, all these different types of techniques we've got that actually allow them to do some pretty incredible things, these emergent properties of intelligence, much more than just generating text. And then this last section here is this sort of iterative execution. Now obviously this requires some code, but we can start to use models to generate output, think about the output, then consume their own output, and then iteratively go around and try and solve problems, and try and deliver outcomes. And also here is where we can connect them to tools. And connecting generative AI-powered applications to tools is where things get super interesting, super exciting, and I think is going to have significant impact going forward. This is where we're going to be focused. Generative AI models with access to the outside world, so they can do things on our behalf. So, 2024, in my opinion, is the year of the AI engineer. Let me explain a little bit about the definition of the term AI engineer, and I'm going to very much borrow from this blog post. This diagram is from a blog post. The link is up there in the top right-hand corner. So this is Swix and Alessio from Latent Space blog/podcast. If you're not reading that blog, then I suggest you may want to. If you're also, the podcast is pretty good. They're also involved with like the AI Engineering World Fair in San Francisco. But they put this post together a little while ago now, if I'm honest, and I'm going to make some updates and changes to this. But this is their contention as to where the AI engineer sits in this sort of continuum that starts at deep data science and data research and then finishes all the way up here in productization, right? The product is on the right-hand side, sorry for people down there. And so you've got your AI engineer kind of sits somewhere in the middle there. Now, I pull out something specifically from this blog post, which I think is pretty exciting, and it sort of encapsulates a little bit about what this means. But they said, we're observing a once-in-a-generation shift right of applied artificial intelligence fueled by the emergent capabilities of open source / API availability of foundation models. So the foundation models that we talked about, predominantly large language models, being made available through APIs. But I wanted to really highlight this. I've been speaking a lot recently at universities. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to grasp this technology. Please, this is really exciting stuff. This is going to change and is changing the way that we're working. And there's an opportunity for us to grab hold of this. I will also tell you now, I'm looking around the room, I think that a lot of you might be what I classify, or what is classified as working professionals. Students are as knowledgeable now about this stuff as we are, because we're all working on this together. There's about to be a whole influx of people who are super interested in this, and I tell you right now, they are really excited by this. But so the point of this, though, is this line in the middle, this API, the availability of this data. We're not needing people necessarily to go down to the left there and to become machine learning engineers and researchers. Of course you can, but there's not that much demand for that as such. The demand is on now, in 2024, this is my point, on the enabling that technology in business problems that we have. Applying the AI technology to go and extract that value that I was talking about before. I think super exciting. So I'm going to add a few more things. So for those that can see in green, I've added some text to green here. So initially they said in the original document blog post that this AI engineer would be responsible for agents and chains. If you're familiar with LangChain, then you might know about that. That's essentially linking models up to the outside world, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But also the tools and infrastructure, yeah, okay, I get it. But there's more to it than that. And I think I'm going to drag a couple of things, or a couple of ways of thinking from the left-hand side of the diagram over to the right. So, model evaluation. So Alan showed before all of the models, Alan showed before a slide which showed a whole bunch of different foundation models. There are a ton missing from that, and Alan will know that, but this thing changes all the time. There's more things getting added to the list all the time. Fantastic problem to have, potentially, to have all this choice. But how do you actually choose the models that you need to use? There's an entire presentation that could be done just on that topic. That's something that the AI engineer will have in their back pocket. The skill set they need to have is how to evaluate those models. Also, prompt engineering and then prompt evaluation, working with people from the business and business domain experts who know how to communicate natural language, working with them to actually formulate prompts into prompt templates, and then And this is the key thing, because last year we did a lot of that. Now what we need to be doing is actually performing evaluation on that so we can show progress, hopefully. And if something goes into production, then we can monitor that and see whether the performance is maintained or whether it needs to be tweaked or something like that. Not a solved problem, by the way. People will ask me, that's great, you put that bullet point up, what does that mean? I don't think that's properly figured out yet, but we need to do that work because we're spending real money now and we need to make sure that we're showing that we're getting value for the money that we spend. Fine-tuning and continuation training. We spoke about that quite a bit last year. I'm going to park those for now. I actually don't think they're quite as important right at the moment. Others may disagree, happy to have that debate, but as models are becoming more capable, it's debatable how much of that we need to do. But I wanted to add this one in as well. We also, in this position, need to manage expectations of managers who think that generative AI will solve all problems without any effort at all. That's something you're going to need to do, something that it sounds like you've had to do as well. So, you know, it's that sort of crossover between sort of solution architect and developer, this AI engineer, have ideas of how some of the things work in that ML research space, but working at that foundation model level. And I'm going to add this here. This is what I was saying a moment ago. We're not all going to go out and get jobs as AI engineers. Some of us will, but I think that all of us should have some level of these skills in our back pocket as AI engineering skills. If you're a full-stack developer, you remain a full-stack developer by also doing some of these things. That's my contention. Okay, nobody put their hand up before, apart from me, I was at the back, you didn't see me, to say that you actually had to go with PartyRock. I want to show you a few things here. I'm not going to stop with PartyRock. I know people who have joined the room definitely know what PartyRock is, because they were here last time and won the jacket. But I'm going to show you PartyRock. So we talked about Bedrock, which is, yes, this is a service from AWS which has all these foundation models and lots more as well. PartyRock is a completely free environment for experimenting around, helping others outside of this room as well take it and show them the capability of generative AI. It's built on top of Amazon Bedrock, and rather than just talking about it, I should show you. So if we go into here, so I don't usually do a QR code because it's so simple. It's partyrock.aws is how you get here. You don't need an AWS account, you don't need a credit card, and you just sign up with like a social media account. Completely free. And what it allows you to do is to experiment around and build generative AI applications. So this isn't so much like a chatbot you come to and just whatever. It's something where you can build applications and then share them with other people too. And so I'd like to show you that. This is me logged in here. If I go over to apps, is it big enough that you can see? It's sort of big enough, right? You can see that. I've got a couple of apps already in here, and I'll just show you quickly just creating one from scratch. And no excuses. I'll try my best. Has anybody here actually done live demoing of generative AI? It's terrifying, believe me. You think writing code is difficult. But what you can do with this is you can actually enter like a one-sentence description of the application you'd like, and it will then attempt to create that application for you, and then you can start to edit it. So that's pretty cool. So let's say a day trip planner. That's what I'm going to say. And I'm going to click generate. And what happens now is that sort of tiny little prompt is going to get taken by the infrastructure behind PartyRock, and it's going to attempt to create a day trip planner for me. Yes?
Random question. When you're doing these demos, do you use the same prompt and get different results back, or do you always pick something different? That way you're always surprised no matter what presentation it is.
That's a great question. So for anybody who couldn't hear over there, do I always use the same thing? Does it always do the same thing? I will admit I have been doing this all of this week, and that's exactly what I've typed in every single time. Yes, way to make it feel not special. In terms of, I'd have to do it multiple times to put them side by side. It always produces something usable. I've got a couple of things that I've already made in here, which I'd like to go back to because I know I want to have specific things to show. I don't know. Yeah. Experiment and do it multiple times and see whether it always comes up with the same thing. Let's have a look at this. I'll see if I can sort of now map into the last time I looked at this. It's probably the same actually, yeah. I don't think it will be exactly the same though. So what's happened here is it's come up with an application. So let's just briefly look at the application, then we'll look behind the scenes. then I want to show you the limitations and how we can get around those. So it's asking me for my location. So let's say I'm in Brisbane, and it's saying what am I interested in, and I'm going to say food. So those two white coloured boxes at the top there, they're inputs. And then I've got these green titled boxes at the top, they're the generative components. So if I press run on that, let's see what happens. And usually I present this in places where I don't live there, and I have to say, does that sound reasonable to you? I reckon I could probably have a pretty decent stab at it myself. So it's getting us to go to Powerhouse for breakfast, and then going to the Botanic Gardens. I guess you could get a city cat there or something. Anyway, it's coming out with stuff. Generative AI, that's what generative AI does. And if I scroll down here, let's see what's underneath here. It's got the ability to chat about the itinerary. So it's created this little chat bot. So we could say, I don't know, it's past dinner, whoops, time, what can I do now? I don't know. Let's scroll up, and it will then say, okay, cool, right, in that case then, we're going to go down to the Howard Smith Wharves, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so it's generating some stuff. Okay. Please don't take this as an invitation to now go and do these things. That's not the idea. Okay, so let me show you how that actually is working. Because honestly, the very, very simple what I did. First of all, when I put the prompt in and it generated the application, so the first thing it's done is it's made this sort of description box at the top with some description about how this works, of course. Then we have these two things here. These are basically our variables, so it gives us the chance to set these. So if I click the edit button here, then on the right-hand side we can see the details of this. So we have a title. This is actually the variable name that will be used, and it's got some placeholder. You can have a default value if you want. And so it's got the same there for the location of the input, location and the interests. And then, probably what's more interesting is we go to the configuration for the generative blocks. And so in here, it's got a title again. Then we get to choose the foundation model that we want to connect to, a list of the large language models that we can use. Now this is a completely free service, but it's not completely unlimited, so there is a countdown in the background saying, okay, well, you've used up an allotment for this time period, or start again. These graphs at the side sort of indicate how many units of compute or whatever that they're using. So, we're using Claude 3 Sonnet. If we wanted to sort of ramp it down a bit, we could go Claude 3 Haiku. It would probably go a bit faster as well, but arguably less intelligent. But with what I'm asking it to do, it's probably would be fine. But I'll leave Sonnet for the moment. Then underneath that, we've got this template here. So this is a template, again, that it put together. So based on the location, and then location input, and if you want to add more in here, you just add an @ sign. So as you're typing this, you can say @ gives you the access to the variables it has, including the generated outputs from previous cells, by the way. So all of a sudden, mine's whirring. You can make all kinds of very cool things here. Cool things. Let's go back on that. So yeah, using the location and whatever I'm interested in, generate detailed itinerary. And you can change this template around. So I could say, and answer like a pirate. Click save on that. It seems to be a typical thing we do in generative AI, and talk like a pirate. Let's generate that again. Ahoy, mate. Swashbuckling day out in Brisbane, etc. Let's show it. That's how it works. Okay, so that's putting together a super simple application, and obviously I generated it by actually typing in my prompt in the first place. You can start with a completely blank slate and you can build things up. The next thing I want to show you, and to your point, hang on a sec. I've got a couple of apps here. I want to go to the outfit planner. Now, somebody in the room is going, really? I made one quite a lot like that. And you're absolutely right. And to your point, yes, I've been presenting this all week, showing other people about this. And I think you probably already know that one person does, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the limitations of how this works. So it is just generating based off of data that it's got inside of a large language model, inside the foundation model. The data that was used to train it, that's all it has. So in this one, I've got this outfit planner. And the idea is I can tell it where I am, and it will figure out what I should wear, given weather generally. Okay. Go to my LinkedIn and see some of the outfits I wore last week. True story. So if I type in Brisbane, Brisbane, and hit go. Let's see what happens. So I've got three generative boxes, and one of them is actually an image generator, because we can do that in here as well. Let's see what happens. So up in this one here, it's given us the weather. So 25 degrees Celsius, 70% humidity, partly cloudy with occasional showers. Okay. Question.
Yeah. Maybe it's the question, but from where is getting the data to,
Yeah.
to thinking about all this stuff? Is that real-time data from where?
Yeah.
Internet or?
That's exactly the point I'm going to be making. Absolutely. Where is he getting the data from? So, let's have a look. Oh, there you go. Look, it's given me an outfit to wear. So, I'm comfortable everywhere. So, yes, let's dive into that. So here is the prompt that I've created to try to help us get this information back. And it says, write specifics of the following typical weather for the typical weather for the following, and giving the location. Only include and then sort of constraining a little bit. If you don't constrain it, then it'll just sort of keep going on and on about it and telling us all about what it thinks. And so I've said to it, I just want it in this format. I'm not asking it to tell me that actual information, but I'm giving it a sense of what I want the output to be, which more or less is sort of stuck to up here. But, to your point, it's not live information. So if it was tipping down with rain at the moment, it would still say probably exactly this, because what it's doing is it's got the information from its the training data that was available to it at the time it trained. And so basically it's saying, well, if you're asking me this question, generally that's probably fairly average throughout the whole year, that's reasonable. But it doesn't know. And so it happens to be that it's probably not too far off, but that is the limitation that I wanted to draw to you. That it's not specifically a limitation of HardyRock, it's a limitation of generative AI bog standard out of the box. Is it only has information from the point in time when it was trained. So it's got the outfit here. Sorry, sir?
Can you make it call in weather API, like an agent kind of?
That would be a great idea. Let's do that. We're going to make it call the Weather API. You're skipping ahead a little bit, but I appreciate it. It's exactly right. Yes. Not PyTorch, but we can do that, and that's what we're going to generate. So here's the outfit thing here. So it says describe. Sorry, I'm getting it to describe the outfit I should wear. Just want to show you how this works. So it's including the location and the weather, because it's information we do have. And then in the prompt for the generation of the image, it's saying to generate something, again, based on the outfit that's been described, not the weather, and the location. So it's chaining together the outputs and inputs, etc. If we get that to generate again, we'll see what image it generates next. And the kind of cool thing about this is that the person in the generation should kind of look like they're in Brisbane, because it knows that that's what it's trying to draw. And so, yeah, let's see what happens now. Always hate waiting for generations. There we go. Yeah, okay. So that kind of looks like could be stood in the middle of Brisbane somewhere. Very similar outfit. All good. Okay, so, yes, the limitation is that it's only using information that it's got pre-trained. Let's go and think about that. And I very much appreciate the segue opportunity. So, that's where I get into agents. We're really rattling through here, and I really want to talk about agents, agentic workflows. This is where I think that we'll be spending a lot of our time. Agentic is a word, by the way. I updated my spell checker. I suggest you do it as well. It's all to do with agents, agency. It's about giving our large language model powered applications the ability to be able to connect into the outside world. Much smarter people than me introduced me to the term agentic. That's why I trusted them. Let me talk about this then. So this is what just happened, to your point before, sir. The request came in and it went to a large language model. That large language model has no connections to the outside world. It just has the data that it had at the point in time it trained. And I could talk about lots of things for a very long time. I could talk about this for a long time, but I don't actually want the model to even think that it knows about what the weather is. I want it to know what weather is, what rain is, but I don't want it to think about that. Other examples, great examples. You see this on TikTok all the time when new models come out. Who's the President of the United States? I don't care if the model knows what that is. What I want to know is, does it know what a president is, what the United States are, and then does it have the capability to use a tool to go and find out the answer? Because it will be different soon, right? Regardless of the outcome, he's not standing again. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to create an agent instead, and this agent has the ability to connect to the outside world, has the ability to be able to go and get your data, live data, private data, if you give it access to it, it can do that. And so in reality what that is the agent's an application. It's a piece of code. It's executable Python probably because that's who I am. You could write it in whatever you want. You could write it in something else. And it's connected to a large language model. So it has the capability of understanding natural language and reasoning and problem solving, but it outsources that component to the large language model. And that then gives us access to the outside world. And what is that? Well, APIs, databases, knowledge bases, so maybe a wiki that you have, anything essentially that this code running inside the agent can get access to, you can connect it to. So it could be information, or it could be to perform an action, whatever you want. And sandbox code interpreters is probably one of my favourite at the moment, and I will show you more about this later. So I just want to run through this architecture fairly quickly. I'm going to put lots of green arrows on here. Hopefully this is useful. I've had lots of conversations with people where this has been sort of glossed over in other presentations and stuff, so people don't get this necessarily. But, sorry, this is the way it works. So a request comes in to the agent. And let's say that it's a natural language. The request, maybe it's what is the weather in Brisbane currently. The agent doesn't know, it doesn't have any sort of language understanding or anything, but what it can do is pass that request to the large language model. But it doesn't just pass the request. What it also does is say, I have a list of all of these data sources. I have all these APIs and databases I've got. I don't know if any of those are relevant, but maybe they are. Large language model, can you figure it out? And it just happens to be that one of the APIs we passed in, which, by the way, has a description, like a natural language description of what it'll do, and one of those APIs says it's a weather API, for example. And so the large language model will return saying, I need you to run the weather API in this case, and send it these parameters, and then we'll be able to get the answer back. So the agent doesn't say anything because it's code and it's stupid, but it basically does what it's told and calls the API, gets some information back. Great. Has that answered the question? We don't know. The agent doesn't know because it's just a dumb piece of code. So it sends that to the large language model. Now, by the way, the large language model is completely stateless. So what we actually have to say is, hey, large language model, a moment ago, I asked you this question. I gave you these tools. You told me to do this. I did this. This is what I got back. And this is the answer. Is that good? Do I have the answer? And hopefully, the textual information contains the weather for Brisbane, so it responds back and says, yes, you've got the answer. This is what you need to tell the caller, the original caller, and it sends that back. So all that happens, and hopefully, in a simplistic way, that's all that happens. And it could be that it loops around and goes and calls another API, does some more things. So from the requester's point perspective, they ask a question and they get a response. But in the middle, all of that happens. At least all of that happens. Let's jump into a quick demo, cross our fingers, and see if we can make that happen. So, now I need to go here, and go over to here. Okay. Hopefully you can see this. It's a very simple looking chatbot. So I'm going to say to this chatbot, I am in Brisbane, tonight. What should I wear? Fixated on what I should wear. Right, now, this is an agentic workflow, an agent workflow, so it doesn't typically, these workflows don't typically stream out tokens like you've seen before and stream out text, because behind the scenes, those tokens that are being generated are going into a process to figure out everything. Okay. So it's come out with actually something very similar because the weather that we hallucinated before is pretty much right. So it actually brought back this answer. What I'm now going to do, it doesn't have a, still what's been, no, it's not getting me to where I address this one. Okay, well, let's go into the actual code. We're not going to, if you want to come and have a look at this later, you can. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on this trace feature, and then we'll be able to see behind the scenes a little bit the conversation that just happened to make that happen. So let me just go and copy that. I'm going to restart this just so we're starting afresh. I'm going to run that again. This time what will happen is it will spew out lots of stuff. I didn't do this initially because it kind of looks like maybe it's gone wrong, but it hasn't. And what we should be able to do is scroll back up and actually have a look at what actually just happened. And what we should see is basically all those green arrows that we saw before. So it starts off, and I love this, it starts off with, first, I'll need to get the current weather details for Brisbane. So it actually is saying this to itself and having this conversation to itself in natural language. I love it. So the first thing that happens is that it's figured out that it needs to call the get coordinates tool. So I've given this agent access to 3 tools that I've made for it, and one of them is called get coordinates. And the first thing it's decided to do is use get coordinates for Brisbane. And the reason it's done that is because it knows, and it's looked ahead already, that the weather API requires coordinates, latitude and longitude. So it's reasoned and problem solved and figured out what it needs to do now in order to be able to get there later, if you like. So it comes back with, the tool comes back with latitude and longitude for Brisbane. And notice that's actually just natural text, sort of like it's actually a string that we're passing back to the model. So it says, great! I have the coordinates for Brisbane. Now I can check it's friendly, it wants to have a nice time. So then it calls the get current weather API. And so it goes and grabs out the latitude and longitude that was sent back in that string, and it actually formats it into the payload, which is defined for this service. And then it goes and it gets this string back, temperature, which is apparently currently 20.96. Annoyingly close to the guessed answer before, but fine. Humidity, in fact, it's very, very similar to the actual guess that it made, but this is real live data. And so it says to itself, okay, based on the current weather in Brisbane, it's around 21 degrees, broken clouds, and it's talking to itself, and then it figures out that ultimately that's the answer that it wants to give us back. So it's gone and done all of those steps, all of those internal green arrows, talking with itself, figuring out reasoning, problem solving, and yes, super simple example, but imagine what it could do if you give it access to other tool sets inside of your business application stack, for example, all kinds of stuff it could do. I think that's really exciting. Now, I think lots of things are exciting. I think this is really exciting. Let me go back and just sort of, there's one more demo I need to do. I don't know how the time is going, but no one's waving at me. Oh, you are waving at me, but that's a question. That's fine. Yes.
I have a question for the previous application. So when you ask what I will wear, then the first question you should ask, what's the current weather? If you want current weather, then you should, what's your location? If you want your location, then you should try to get your long lat. Instead of, I see the question, what's your long lat? And then I figure out your location, figure out weather, figure out wind. It should be the other way around, right?
So are you talking about just, I gave it loads of information, so it made it easier for it to answer the question?
Because when you ask the question, what should I wear tonight?
Yes.
So
I said I'm in Brisbane, what should I wear tonight?
You should know, if I want to answer that question, I should know the weather.
Yeah.
If I know the weather, I should know the location.
Yes.
If I want to know the location, I should know the long lat instead of your answer.
So there's a discussion now, I guess, about the reasoning steps that it needs to take and what information it already has and what it might ask us. In this particular case, I haven't shown the code, but I'm happy to get out later. There is a system prompt, and the system prompt describes to the agent its purpose in life, and it sort of explains to it that it's friendly, which is probably why it's friendly to itself, and there is that. I guess I also I kind of know how it works, so maybe that's sort of like influencing what I'm typing in. I don't know if this specifically answers the question, but if I was to say to it, what should I wear, and only ask that question, it will come back to me and say, where are you? And then I tell it where I am. And then it may also come back and say, actually no, it won't come back and ask me what the time is, because it has the ability to get the time itself. But with this one, if I say, I'm in Brisbane, what should I wear tonight? Then it kind of like skirts down what it already needs to know. So it looks at it intelligently and figures out what it needs to know in order to be able to get to an outcome which is sort of system prompted for it. I don't know if that sort of talks to the point, but yeah, I'm happy to look at the code as well. Yeah.
I'll be quick, but do you think it would be possible to make a architecture which you can ask it any question, and you would be smart enough to know if this is a thing that needs to be fetched in another method, and on the fly create a function to do that, return the value, and then use that?
Yeah. So the question is, can we create something that would look at sort of any question coming in, and then sort of, I guess, figure out where to send that, and in some cases maybe actually write code on the fly essentially to answer that question, as almost like you've seen the last part of this demonstration. So yes, the first part of your question though is a routing function, and there are definitely architectures out there which are working to basically look at any incoming question and figure out where to route that to, because in reality, you're probably not going to have one massive amorphous blob of all the world's agents. You want to have different models responding for different kinds of expertise and different kinds of capabilities. If you ask me to generate an image, then large language models are not the way to go and all that kind of stuff. So you have this sort of routing layer, which is becoming quite common. So Route LLM is one project. Some very smart people from AWS in Paris, I think, have written one as well, and I actually get it off the top of my head, but there's an open source project which does that as well. So there's definitely, that's one component to it. Yeah. Writing and executing code on the fly.
So
is the third part
this
of this
specific case, did you write the call to the API, or did the agent build the code to call the API?
In terms of the API for this, so the question is, did I write the code to call the API? And yes, I did. So the way I defined it in that in the agent was, you have, I said to the agent, you have 3 tools. These are the names of the tools. This is a text description of what the tool does, and these are the parameters you need to call this, and whether those parameters were required or not. And you can basically build all of that in the console as well. But you ship it in code, but you can build it in the console and do that. Yes.
If, say, the API 404 or 503, what would be more idiomatic, like to fall back to the LLM's own knowledge base, or just fail?
Yeah, so if the API comes back with an error of some kind, it's going to be up to the agent to decide what it wants to do next. We can system prompt it and sort of persuade or give it guidance on that. So we could do something at the actual API layer itself, of course. So if we know there's a 404 come back, we could go and call something different. If the LLM's got no other choices, then it's just probably going to come back at the moment. This code would come back to the user and say, I can't find out the weather. But it might say, in fact, that'd be an interesting test to do. It probably will say, I can't get access to the weather, but based on the typical weather from Brisbane, you probably want to know this. That's probably what would happen. Yeah. 5-minute warning. Come on, let's go. So retrieval augmented generation, that's something that I probably will be talking about more length, but that's one type of architecture for agentic function calling, which is what we've just looked at, and then just one-time code execution, which is wonderfully said, thank you. But this is basically where we get it to generate code. Alan talked about how it can generate code in things like Amazon Q Developer. Now with that, it's generating code, it's giving it to you. You evaluate that code and decide if you want to ship it anywhere. With this, we're going to write some code, and it sounds crazy, but we're just going to run it and see what happens. In a sandbox environment that's also nice and secure, because you don't want to be running this code on your laptop in case you get a hallucination of delete all my files or something. So let's not do that. So what does that look like? So imagine that we've got a text prompt which looks like sum all the values of this. Large language models are not very good at maths. Let's just say they can't do maths. They can only work with language. If this was much longer than this, because if I only made 3 cells, that would be bad. But if this was any much longer than this, then large language model wouldn't be able to add these numbers up. But they can write code, and code could add these numbers up. So quickly what it might look like is that the LLM ends up writing a piece of code. A piece of scrappy-looking code, if I'm honest. I wouldn't like to have this code, but it works and it outputs a number, and that's what we need. And then it's ephemeral, right? We're going to throw that code away. We never need to see it ever again. So, one thing that no one's asked me for yet, but you might want to know, is the. So I have a GitHub repository for that outfit code that we're running a minute ago. So it actually gives you the agent. It doesn't actually give you the chatbot, but it gives you the agent, and you can test around with this inside of the Bedrock console. So this is the outfit assistant. And I see someone taking a picture of it, and appreciate that, but I should get you a QR code, right? It's almost like code. Right, so I'm going to go back to my chat here. I'm going to reset this. I've copied that URL, right? Did I do that? Yeah, copied that URL. Let's go back to my generic chatbot code. I'm going to uncomment one section and comment out another section. So this is basically switching agents. So I'm going to go to a code interpreter agent. Let's actually save that, otherwise nothing will happen. And then, yeah, we're there? Yeah, we're there. Let's refresh that, reset that. So now I'm in a code execution environment, or a code execution agent. It's the only agent. It's not combined with other things, just to sort of keep it simple. And I think this has also got that trace turned on, so we'll see a bunch of stuff. So if I was to say add up the Fibonacci, I can never spell Fibonacci, sequence, well, come on, I can usually spell sequence, up to, I don't know, some number that it would never have been trained on. Hit go. Then it should take that, text, that natural language request, and it should, in the background, write some code that will solve that, run it, see the output, and then respond to us. And it says down the bottom there, cool. So the answer is that number there. Because I've got trace still enabled, we can see its friendly conversation with itself. In order to calculate it, well, I'll need to generate the sequence, then I'll need to sum them together. And if we just read through this code, it's exactly what it does. It writes the Python code to actually, what it looks at, it prints out the sequence, and then it writes a piece of code which is going to sum that together, and then it dumps it out for us. What I can also do, so that's pretty simple Python. There's so many things you can do with it. So seriously, 5 minutes. Actually, that was 5 minutes, about 5 minutes ago. You can generate a QR code for the URL. Well, no, I typed in the system. Okay, let's go back and get this. Right, you obviously did the last part. It'd be interesting to see what it comes back with. There we go, that's the QR code for that. Now do that with this URL. Having a chat with it, so the agent has chat memory, so I don't need to tell it specifically to generate a QR code. I'm just going to keep going. Now make this one. And this is the one that hopefully will be more interesting than the last one. Okay, it spits out all the codes using import QR code, blah, blah, blah. There you go. Look at that one. Does it work? It works. It works. Yeah, I knew it worked. Yes, it works. Code generated on the fly. All right, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. Let's see where we go from here. Yeah, and I don't need to talk to you about these in particular detail because Alan did a wonderful job of telling you about this already. So we've got the two different sides of how you can build generative AI into your application stack. And yeah, Amazon Q Developer, you can use that with any application, even if you're not building generative AI in, right? It's a tool to help you. We've got all the foundation models. Alan showed you a list of it. I don't do that anymore, Alan. I just put a QR code up there because it just keeps changing. So that hopefully will give you a list of them. But go to the console page for Amazon Bedrock and have a look at that. And maybe there's only one thing you take away from this? No, I don't know. The service itself also has all these other things. So it has model evaluation APIs built into it, so you can evaluate the models for your particular use case. It has knowledge bases, which is fully managed RAG. It has agents. So those agents I was just showing you, they were made with agents from Amazon Bedrock. They will production scale, so they are Lambda functions mainly, and then managed for us, managed for me, so I don't have to think about the infrastructure they're on. And guardrails to help them be more less toxic, and a bunch of stuff. We could talk about that at length. So there you go, have a look at those. Code Interpreter, which I just showed you, is actually a service. So Lucy's now stood up, and that's in public preview, so have a look at that. Prompt flows allow you to add together, and I don't talk about this at length, but I'm happy to over pizza. But prompt flows allow you to be able to connect together multiple different agents and prompts and decision points and build a whole multi-agentic workflow This is going to be the rest of my life doing this stuff. It's awesome fun. I don't need to mention community.aws because Alan's already done it, but do sign up and post your own stuff there so that it's not just me posting articles there. And if you are interested in the code interpreter, and I did actually make a video about it, but so if you get that QR code, that'll take you to the video. In the description of that video, there is there's a link to a notebook which goes into the code of doing that rather than just looking at it. So it'll actually, the notebook will show you how all of that works. That beep probably means my time's way over. So thank you so much for your time and attention.
Okay, so first things first, as usual, want to thank our supporters for tonight. So as we can all see, we've got Year 11, Fortworks, and then AWS in the corner. Woo! Yeah, obviously wouldn't be...
Also, just a massive thank you to Amazon Developer Relations team as well, who have funded tonight's prizes and provide Mr. Mike Chambers as well.
Woo! Okay, next thing. Are you interested in speaking at a user group? If so, please make sure you scan the QR code. This is a great opportunity if you want to learn to speak and feel comfortable. Obviously, we do get a lot of speakers in, we have the regulars, but we're also always looking for new people and we want to make sure the community is involved. So if you do want to speak, please ask, scan the QR code. Otherwise, feel free to talk to one of us. We're not scary, I promise. Cool. Next thing, game day. Make sure you're there. We'll have some prizes, we'll have some pizza, we'll have some competition. I'm very excited for it. I'm not even allowed to play. But my claim to fame for the 2023 summit was I won the game day with my team, and I was very proud. I highly recommend everyone else to go and do it.
This will be as close to a real one as we can make it.
Yeah. Well, we're hoping it's all good, but obviously it's about you guys. Come and join, have the competition. We're really excited for it. Next is a YouTube channel. So obviously this came in recently, thanks to Rian. If you want to go back and watch some content, we do have this YouTube channel now. We have some of the old presentations from the last couple of months. We're hoping to keep it updated with all the new ones as we keep going through forever, hopefully. Hopefully no one gets sick of the user group. I love it. Next, Slack channel. If you want to stay connected, we do use it as a way to post upcoming events and send reminders. We also do have connections into community.aws blog. So if you want any new blogs, it also has the AWS What's New RSS feed as well. But it's a great way to stay in contact, get updates, find out when the next user group is. Come along, please join. Make the IBIS happy. Make me happy. Yeah. And of course, thank you for coming. If you have any feedback, please make sure you provide it. We are always looking for feedback.
And a big thank you as well to Lucy and Ryan for organising tonight and Lucy for hosting.
And thank you for joining. Thank you for making the effort for coming out for our very long night. We really do appreciate it. Especially, I know it's still in the cold months, so everyone wants to be wrapped up at home. Awesome. Thank you. Have a lovely evening, everyone.